And hello,
Great.
hello. This is Caroline Ceniza-Levine, founder of the Dream Career Club. And today's guest expert is Catherine Gamolo Agopcan. Oh, I
Great.
almost got it. Who is behind the Sisters for FI's Financial Independence website. So she is a financial educator and children's book author, right? And Sisters for FI is a learning and community platform committed to educating future and current moms to optimize expenses, earn more, invest for the future, and be better stewards of their money. So all topics that I want to cover today. I'd love to get your insights on that. So prior to this role, she spent over a decade in IT and ad tech ops, which is what we're going to talk about first, because that is quite the pivot. And through Sisters for FI, she shares many lessons via in-person workshops, a bi-weekly newsletter on YouTube and across social media. So you should definitely check out Sisters for FI. So Catherine, thanks so much for agreeing to do a talk for my audience and for my readers. Financial independence is such an important topic for both, not even just for the whole money aspect of it, but for career, or for living your
Right.
best life. And you have such an interesting career. So tell me about the pivot, right? IT, ad tech. Did you always know you were going to do something in finance? Like, kind of
Oh,
just tell me, have this
absolutely
happen?
not. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on this. So Sisters for Fi was born a little bit later on. I had no intention of going into my own, or even being into going to finance or financial education. I worked in IT, studied IT, and worked in ad tech for a while. And I had just accepted a new job within a new ad tech space, basically recruited out of my old role to help build an ad tech product. But a few months into it, I was laid off. And it was a little bit
Okay.
shocking to my system to do that because I did what people tell you to do. I negotiated for a higher raise. I negotiated for all of those things, and I was just shocked to say, "Oh my God, this is a kind of crazy that this is happening." But all of this time, like I've been personally into personal finance. My mom was a big influence onto that, so I was able to kind of lean on to some aspect of my personal savings to get through that time. But during this time that I was laid off, I took some time off. My sister introduced me to the Choose Fi world, and Fi is financial independence. And that's kind of also where I met you through all of this. And I started joining some of these Choose Fi meetups, and I just saw a lot of men in those meetups. And I started thinking, well, where are the women? Where are my sisters? Like I have two younger sisters. What space could they come into to learn more about financial independence? What is that? What is that about money? So I started Sisters for Fi through that journey. And here we are, like a few years later. And it's evolved over time, especially as I'm growing and changing. But my whole goal for Sisters for Fi would be to help young women, help future current moms just optimize their money so they can do more with it, and really have that cushion for themselves should anything happen. So anything happen like a layoff or other life event.
Yeah. So you are a certified financial educator. So can you
Mhm.
talk about what that is and how that's different from being, let's say, a financial advisor or a financial analyst? There are so many
Right.
different types of jobs. Yeah.
Yes. So there is definitely a lot of financial planner, advisor, and my role as a financial educator is to provide foundation on personal finance. So this is as generic as credit information, as generic as you understanding what it means to be an adult living in today's world, what kind of finances you need to understand, how to manage your finances, budgeting is some of the things that many of us don't learn in school and don't understand or maybe have trouble doing when we be adults. My goal as a financial educator is to provide that foundation. That way you can start building your wealth and then maybe reach out to a financial planner. Financial planner will be someone that will provide you like a specific action item to reach a goal. That's their planning option. Or you might go to a financial advisor where they're going to provide you some information on investments. So, but you can't go to some of these kind of next step people until you learn the basics, understand like some of the lingo, some of the language that is in personal finance. So with my job as a financial educator is to promote some of these foundational courses, foundational topics, so you understand that going into becoming an adult and kind of living life on your own.
Cool. So we decided to do this talk specifically now because it's Filipino-American
Yes.
History Month. And you're a Phil-Am, I'm a Phil-Am. And yeah, I mean, so talk to me about growing up Filipino-American, and did that influence your approach to money or your approach to career and kind of managing that?
Yes, absolutely. So I came here to the US when I was so fairly young, but definitely influenced by the immigrant mentality. Like that's still, I think that's how my mindset is. That's how I think. And a lot of it is because of my mom. My mom was a nurse. And if you probably talk to a lot of Filipino families, they come to the US through that route. So through that route, my mom was here a few years. So she was on her own working as a nurse, living by herself before she was able to bring us to the country. And definitely my mom was a hardworking individual, wanted to save, wanted to provide for her family. So that is something that is definitely ingrained in me to have that mentality that I want to make sure that what I'm doing is something that's good for my family, something that will provide us for years, like a legacy to own that, and to continue working hard and to continue providing that value to other people. And that is when I was growing up, my mom read a lot of personal finance books. Like she had a
Mm.
whole range because she was new to this country. She had no clue how to even start going through the process of maybe getting her credit score, getting all of these things that we sometimes take for granted if once we live in the US. But she had to start from the beginning. So her mindset was like, I need to learn this. I need to find the books. I need to talk to the people that can help me with this. And that's where I think a part of where I'm coming from too is that like there's so much information out there, but there's also a lot of information that can paralyze you from taking action. So once you start reading, start taking action, then you can start fulfilling a lot of your family's dreams and goals.
So my mom also is an
Mhm.
immigrant. I was born here, but she, I think similar to your mom, really was the saver, the provider.
Right.
Definitely that the original side hustler. My mom would have, so the part-time job, she was an Avon lady, in addition to being an
Mhm.
accountant, right? Her day job. So I hear you about learning that work ethic from the family. What about the kind of the investing side? I mean, I will tell you that, it's interesting that my mom was the original, side hustler and was very entrepreneurial in some ways, but in other ways, she was very risk averse, I think, because she was the provider and the saver. And so I'm curious if you got your investment philosophy and approach from your mom, or if that was something that you had to break out of.
I did, surprisingly. My mom is actually probably on the risk averse side as well. I'm definitely into safe investments, but she was a big fan of Susie Orman. So she would kind of just reiterate what Orman said, which is to invest automatically. She didn't really understand a lot of the investment lingo. And I think sometimes you don't need to. You just need to get started. And for her, she was a safe investor and she passed that on to me as well. She's like, just make sure you start contributing to your 401k when you get work with something on. She was big on making sure you take advantage of all the benefits that work has to offer. And I still continue to do that. Like I'm not a big risk taker when it comes to investing. I don't know everything about investing, but I know enough. And I think that's something that we all need to kind of understand that there's some things, especially in the personal finance world, that we don't have to be an expert to start taking action in a lot of ways. So for her, it was like she watched TV, she watched CNBC and kind of learned the lingo of like what the market is, the stock market. And from there, she started doing her own investments, starting with really generic of like fund investment and moving towards like her own individual stocks. But similar mentality, I think, as your mom was like risk averse, but still trying anyways.
Yeah. So where are you on your fire journey? And is it a different approach and philosophy because you're Filipino American, because you're an immigrant, because you're a woman?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think absolutely. A part of this too is I would say that I'm like in the middle of my fire journey, still trying to get. So in fire, there's a concept of really putting in all of your buckets in a row to have income coming in and cash flow and getting that ready so that when you kind of take that leap to either take time off or be retired, you have something to draw on. I'm definitely midway through that, partly because I have like a younger daughter. So there's a lot of, I think for me, a lot of risk knowing that if I leave the workforce without some kind of cash flow or any type of investment, there's a risk. So I'm definitely like still kind of on the journey at this point, still early on within my five, but I love learning about it though. I love like understanding like how people are reaching five, from real estate to investing to all these things. So it's something that's constantly on my mind. Like how else can we get to five? How else can we create that path for myself as well as for the rest of my family?
And so are you, so obviously you have your own business, you're still working as a financial
Mhm.
educator. Do you do real estate? Like what's your kind of fire philosophy or your tools in your toolkit?
Uh, so right now we have an investment property that is in New Jersey. Actually, it's part of like a part of our portfolio, and it's something that I was not really into. I wasn't sure if I was going to do real estate investing because I in any of our circles, it wasn't something that my parents talked about. It wasn't something they knew, and I didn't know a lot of families doing real estate investing. So that's something that I have just started. So we have an investment property that hopefully will provide us some sort of income as well as that return a little bit later on. And of course, we're doing our investing across all of our retirement accounts, and also investing in myself. Like I feel like I have so much more to give, and I have probably will live a longer period of time. So I'm learning as well to be a to provide value and content so that at some point too I can also like get paid for a lot of what I'm doing now.
Yeah. So you talk about investing in yourself. So I'm curious because you obviously started your own business, you did that career pivot, like I mentioned. What resources did you use, right? Did you take specific courses? Were there books that you rely on? Did you get a coach, a mentor? Kind of like how did you both educate yourself on fire and to become a certified financial educator, but then
Mhm.
also educate yourself on a career pivot from IT
Yeah.
to
So
doing this.
a big part of this was like reading books. I'm a big fan of reading books, self-development books, just to change the mentality and the mindset. A lot of it's too is just taking on this new language in my mind that I could be an entrepreneur. I could do these things. And then from there, I started finding these experts in certain fields, experts that would provide me just a mindset. How can I shift my mindset? I've actually attended a lot of Tony Robbins events to give me that mindset shift and provide that. I've taken a lot of classes. I've also actually gone through a lot of this was also credibility. How can I make myself credible to be a financial educator? So getting that title, getting that certification to be a financial educator was something I wanted to do. And it's something that you do have to kind of map out like what do you want for yourself and how can you get there? And I think there's also so much information out there. How do you find one that fits your needs, that fits your goals? So you do have to sort through a lot of information to get that for yourself. But I think for me, starting out was just reading podcasts was also a good way, and as well as YouTube videos. Again, get yourself in the mindset, get your the language in your mind to be a little bit different than what you were used to.
Got it. And you mentioned Tony Robbins, any other either books or podcasts or YouTube folks specifically that you want to call out as your favorite?
If you're into the fire movement, I'd absolutely recommend Your Money or Your Life as a starting point for your journey. I think it provides you this pivot in your mind about how you want to think about money, and from there, you want to start then kind of reaching out to if you have a passion project or if you're looking to do something, find people that are experts in their field. Like if you're going to do marketing, check out Seth Godin. He has a lot of things that can provide you that marketing mentality. If you are going to be going into other areas, if you want to create products, I'm sure there's a bunch of people that could also provide you that. But I think for as a starting point, I would recommend that you start your money or your life, just provide you that change in mentality about why you're working, how you're saving money, and what is it in it for you. And then you can move to whatever passion you're interested in.
Yeah, so when we were kind of talking offline, you mentioned the whole kind of risk management versus, leaving it up to fate, right? Like how tightly
Mhm.
you control risk. This is such a tough, I think, investing environment. And I know we're not going to talk
Right.
about specific investments, but just even looking at inflation, running hot, and then interest rates going up so that debts are more expensive. So if you're trying to get a mortgage or just if you have any sort of variable interest, so that I'm sure like impacts your audience and just how you counsel people. So, I mean, talk to me about your approach to risk and just anything that we should be thinking about as
Yes.
people working
So
towards FI.
there's a lot going on in the economy. And what we need to understand is that like there's things we can do today to help us move forward in the future. Right now, interest rates are high. So that means interest rates on your credit cards, on your mortgage, on car loans are high. So what you want to be doing is planning a little bit for the future. Do you want to take on some of these large debts that will unfortunately impact day-to-day spending budget? So you want to assess that. If you have any kind of debt, be wary, right? Credit card debt at this point is around 20%. And I have been in credit card debt. And that's something that while it was manageable, it was definitely something that weighed on my mind. So I am averse to debt. And I know that a lot of people are okay with that. But for credit card debt, I'm averse to it. So I want people to start thinking about like why are they going into credit card debt, especially consumer debt. It's so costly. Why are you putting some things on credit? So you want to assess that for yourself. And then of course you want to assess the big picture. Like some of us want to be homeowners, some of us want nice cars, so you want to assess like if you're going to buy these things at these high rates, will it pay off? Will it help you get on to the next stage of your fire journey, or just a journey to be a little bit more financially solvent? Who knows? I think at this point, what the future of the economy will be. There's a lot of talk about a recession coming because of a lot of, geopolitical events happening. The increase in rates may cause a lot of businesses to really draw down and pull back on spending. So we need to understand that overall macro space, but also plan for our micro. Like, what can we do at home to maybe start saving a little bit more? Maybe cut down our spending so we have that cushion should something happen to our jobs, our families, and really protect us from all of these other events that are happening. And the market, if you are looking at the market right now, you're going to see a lot of ups and downs, and it's absolutely scary to watch and look at all of those, your money, your retirement going up and down. So you want to just take a step back. Like, at what point do you need that money? Maybe you don't need it now. So you want to be investing continuously because research has shown that over time, investments normally continue to go up. But if you are risk averse, you might want to diversify. Other ways that you can earn more money on your money, like the savings accounts that are providing higher rates. So think diversification, especially now there's so much going on in the world. How else can you protect yourself and your money so that in case something happens, you're not like pushed to one side that might have a negative effect on your family and your finances?
Yeah. Do you still do anything with IT and with tech ops, or are you entirely out of that line of work? Just
I
thinking about the career diversification of
Yes, I still do some on the side, some consulting on the side too. I don't want to turn my back on it completely. because there's so much going on in that space. There is so much activity and so much potential as well. So at some point, if and when I'm ready, I might go back to it. And I'm still also like, I love learning about that. I love learning the new AI that's coming out. I love learning about all the new technology that's coming out. So definitely I keep up to date with that. Like LinkedIn is a great source for me to keep up to date to what's happening, because I don't want to just say I'm not going back to it. There might become a time when I'm like, okay, I'm ready to actually go back to working like a 9 to 5 and do that for myself.
Right. So I was going to ask about that. So what's your time management approach? Do you try to do, 50% like sisters for FI and then 50% other consulting projects? And of that, is that split between IT and the financial education stuff, or, or is it more fluid than that? Like what's your,
It's
yeah.
yeah, it's definitely more fluid than that. Partly, I want to focus more on growing Sisters for Fi a little bit more, because I think there's a legacy there that I can build on. So a lot of the work that I'm doing is evergreen work, so work that I can reference at some point, and also raising my daughter. So a lot of my time is shifted towards her. So from managing her to raising her, then is the work for Sisters for Fi, and then the work for consulting or other work. And so that's how my time is divided. I'm also trying to kind of create things that live on in the internet, like live on through something that people can watch no matter what time. And I think it's something that we can take from the internet too, that we can present something and people can read it and learn from it, and you don't have to be in person to do it at all times. So that's the kind of the division that I'm trying to work for and going for too.
Yeah. So you mentioned, prioritizing, obviously raising your young daughter. You've talked about your
Mhm.
mom. So this is a big financial independence issue too, is the whole sandwich generation, right? So taking care of elders, taking care of kids. And a lot of Filipino families are multi-generational. So what is are you making plans for that already? Is your mom financially sufficient? Like, have you talked about like what your obligations are there? And have you thought about even things like, are you covering the whole cost of college for your kid? Or are you going to have them take
Mhm.
out loans? I'm curious about how far you've gone along that
Yeah,
path.
that's a really good question. I think because in a lot of Filipino families and a lot of Asian cultures too, is that the children end up taking care of the parents. That is how we say thank you. That is how we say salamat for raising me and taking care of me. I am at the point where my parents retired and I am raising a 4-year-old. So I'm definitely in that prime space of needing to watch both sides. Thankfully, my parents are financially independent at this point. But in order to be financially independent, they did have to move to the Philippines.
Okay.
It was always been their plan to move there, but it's also mentally my parents' plan to say, like, our money will go so much farther in the Philippines at this point. So the geo arbitrage, they call it the geo arbitrage, where you
Yeah.
basically take like something that's a little bit like your dollar, which will go so much farther in another country. And it's something that you're familiar with, I think, Caroline. So that's something that they've had in their plan and in their mind for a lot. So the good news is I don't have to worry as much about that, but I do have to worry about raising my child and the cost of a lot of things going up at this point, and of college. I don't know what that cost is going to be. So I want to try to do my best to save as much as I can for her. But I also want to, I think a part of my work too within the financial education space is to find all of these areas that we can be resourceful to pay for college into so much debt without really burdening the next generation to get out of school and have to pay like 30,000-40,000 worth of student loans, and they can't really start their life. So as I am educating other people, educating my daughter, I want us to be open-minded to options for college, paying for college, or other options other than college, just to help her grow and pursue what she wants to do when she becomes older.
Yeah, I know for for myself, because I have two daughters, but they're both done, I did have them both take out loans because I wanted them to have skin in the game. My older one actually was tuition free from a scholarship, but then for grad school, she covered that. And then my younger one decided to go to a private college instead of a city college like my older one, which was, of course, much more expensive. So I did have her cover some of the cost of that. But I hear you, regarding like, yeah, where are ways to be resourceful. How does the investment property fit in? Because one of the regrets for myself regarding financial independence is we got into the real estate game relatively late. Had I done it earlier, I mean, I definitely would have just bought properties to finance essentially our kids' education, because the rents could definitely cover much of that, if not all of that. Much more so than a 529. Anyway, that's my philosophy. But like, you have an investment property, is that owned with your sisters, or and is that intended for your retirement or for family legacy? Like, how does that fit in?
It could be both. I think there's a lot of options for it. I think that's the reason why my partner and my husband and I decided to pursue it, because there's a lot of options for it. So it is earning cash flow. We potentially could sell it years from now and make a pretty decent return on it. We could also borrow against it should the time come, if we need money for my daughter's education or other needs. So I think this is where the flexibility comes with buying real estate. And I think that's something I just learned. Like, for many years, especially like coming early on, like I was afraid to invest in property. I was afraid to invest in real estate. One, because I didn't know much about it. Two, I just thought that it was such an inflexible investment that like you had to sell it to get the gains. And that's something I'm learning now, that there's so much you can do with real estate. Now, I'm not promoting that everybody gets a real estate investment, but I think if you don't understand it, you can fear it. So the more you look into it, the more you read it. And sometimes you do have to take the first step in maybe purchasing a property, seeing how that works out for you, seeing what kind of work it means for you, and potentially what kind of returns it gets you. You can dive into that. But hopefully our goal is to have this property for a longer period of time, either continue to own it and have some cash flow for it, or at some point sell it, or maybe if at some point she comes back, it becomes her and my daughter's in the future. So we'll see. There's a lot of flexibility, thankfully, for it.
Cool. So anything else that I didn't ask specifically that you want to leave with, the listeners, about you, about your work, about you're such an interesting career. I mean, just that pivot. So like, any last words? And then also, of course, where people can find you. I will link to your book and Sisters for FI, but just, anything that you want to highlight for people who want to get to know you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think the big thing that I've learned in the past few years is that always continue learning. I think that's the big thing, right? Especially if you're in your career, if you are trying to do entrepreneurship, that's something that no one can take away from you. So keep doing that. I've also found that like networking has been a big part of kind of my success, and maybe it's something that we don't talk about as often. Maybe our families are kind of like very sometimes small, or we're kind of in the same we're in the same networks, but branching out to other networks can really help you fulfill maybe some of your goals, or find someone to connect with to help you with other things. And I would also just, especially if you come from an immigrant family, or if you come from a Filipino family, it's hard to talk about money. Like, it's not as easy. Maybe we call it taboo. Maybe it's just like, oh, it's just, I don't want to talk about money, because it either signals something about us. But money is critical. Money is important. It's something that we all need. So I would recommend that if you have young children, start teaching about money, start talking about it, because sometimes we leave it to education to do it, like as far as like other formal education, sometimes it doesn't happen, right? Like, there's a lot of the high schools do not have a financial class, so you end up graduating without a lot of these foundational knowledge. If that's something that you can instill in your child, provide them at education, but provide them also ways to learn those lessons, I think can go a long way. And yeah, you can definitely find me at sistersforfi.com, which provides a lot of resources for you to check out, as well as some books for you to check out if you want to help teach your young kids about money too. And then there's also links to our YouTube and Instagram page from there.
Great. So thank you so much, Catherine, sistersforfi.com. I will link to that in all of the show descriptions, and happy Phil and History Month.
Thank you so much, Caroline, for having me.